Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. Carlos Alcaraz is the champion in Beijing, and it's not just any ATP 500 title. It is another win over the current world number one, Jannik Sinner, and it was an epic. It was tremendous. We're going to talk about that, and also Arthur Fils with a truly impressive title run in Tokyo, and I will dive into some stuff about that run as a whole, but mostly the win that he had in the final over Ugo Humbert. But of course, we will begin with Alcaraz, powered by BetUS. So much to get into. This was, again, an awesome match, and certainly a meaningful one every time they play. I mean, it's such an important rivalry that the dynamics between these two, you know, are going to hold a lot of weight. But with Alcaraz going up in the head-to-head 3-0 in 2024, first of all, he needed to get over the hump that I think existed mentally where, you know, he was a better player than Jannik for a period of time and Sinner was still beating him, or at least giving him a run for his money. And it was kind of looking like, okay, Jannik has actually a positive matchup thing here because Alcaraz is the better player, but he's not, you know, in the head-to-head, it's very, very even. And now it's funny, there's been a little bit of a reversal, right? Sinner, if you look at the full body of work this year, he's been better. He's been better than Alcaraz. And that's why he's ahead in the race by quite some margin. But Alcaraz has the head-to-head now, 3-0. Really funny how that's flipped. And I think Alcaraz will take a lot of solace in that at the end of the year, because obviously being the competitor that he is, of course he wants to finish year-end number one. I don't think that's going to happen for him this year unless he goes on quite the run. But if everything holds, and at the end of the year, and I do think that he and Sinner are going to play again before this is over, at the end of the year, if he's not year-end number one, but he's 3-0 against the guy who finished year-end one, man, I mean, you can't feel all that bad about that if you are Carlos Alcaraz. I experienced this final a little bit differently myself. Started at 2 a.m. local time for me. I went to bed at 1 a.m. local time. Managed to wake up, not go on my phone really, not go on the internet much. I didn't get it spoiled. I watched it on replay. But, man, it was tremendous viewing. And I do think that this was a match where the stereotypes, stylistic stereotypes that you would assign to both players, they held very true. So not only was this an exceptionally close match where neither player at any point in the match was able to really generate any clear separation from one another, but they were really staying true to their personalities as players. And I've said many times, Alcaraz has more magic. Sinner has more steadiness. I think that's true in a lot of ways. Technically, mentally, tactically. Maybe not physically, but in a lot of ways, Alcaraz has more magic, Sinner has more steadiness. And it's kind of a matter of, again, I think in this match, it was that saying or that phrase that I kind of like to go to with this matchup, one of many, really playing itself out. But in terms of the magic, the specifics of the magic that ultimately won out and ultimately powered Carlos Alcaraz to victory, God, the forehand. The forehand was an absolute beast. And if I had to say what was the difference maker on court, I got to say it was Alcaraz's forehand. He was hitting it way bigger than Sinner, to my eyes. He was hitting it with much more intention on a regular basis. And that was the main disruptor in the match. And that was really preventing Jannik from getting comfortable and being able to do his thing. And we've seen Alcaraz in the previous two matchups this year with Sinner disrupt with some other stuff, especially with the variety of heights. And, you know, using variety to kind of set up opportunities to go big with his forehand. We didn't really see that in this match. I think the disruptor in this match for Alcaraz was brute force and extremely proactive, aggressive intention. And he didn't just flip that switch for this final. Tennis Insights had some really good and interesting numbers coming into the final. That first of all, Alcaraz's in-attack percentage was up to 32%, where his regular average over the course of the last year is 25%. So Alcaraz was attacking more often throughout the event. But then if we look at the specifics of his forehand, he was up from 76 miles per hour to 79 miles per hour on his forehand coming into the final, 3 miles per hour up. I could almost guarantee that the forehand was up in that 79 to 80 range, even though I'm not positive because I wasn't able to get that stat. And not only is it faster, but the net clearance is lower. It's down about 20 centimeters. Usually it's 77 centimeters average net clearance. Now it's 57. So it's faster, it's flatter, and it was the difference maker for Carlos in this match time and time again. Let me show you some screenshots here. We'll go to some early film study where I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. So here's what I was seeing a lot of. Jannik Sinner with a neutral forehand here. He's on the move, but he's got plenty of time on this forehand from the deuce side of the court. He's going to trade the ball up the middle, and there's nothing really bad about this forehand. It's fine. It's a high percentage forehand trade. And Alcaraz says, kill mode. He sees red, and he just laces this forehand kind of down the line, a little bit inside out. He's from the middle of the court. And suddenly, Jannik is losing the point off of this shot. He goes from neutral to the Alcaraz forehand, just doesn't do quite enough with the ball, and he gets punished for it, doesn't make this desperate open stance defensive backhand. By the way, Alcaraz was in behind his forehand. So, to go from this position here, for if you're Jannik Sinner, where you're hitting a rather comfortable forehand, to losing the point on the very next shot because you just, you just got attacked in a very vicious way is not ideal, to say the least. And this was break point at 1-all in the third. So this was Alcaraz going up the early break in the third set. Sinner would ultimately recover that break later on. It goes to a third set tie break. I don't think I mentioned that yet. Yeah. Final score, 7-6, or 6-7, 6-4, 7-6. This is 3-4 Sinner serving in the tie break. So this third set breaker is still on serve at this point. And this is the +1 forehand from Jannik. It's hard to tell from the screenshot, but Alcaraz slightly mishit the return. There's actually a lot of time for Sinner to hit this forehand, although it's deep. So he does have to move backwards. So he kind of hits this fadeaway forehand, doesn't do all that much with it. Alcaraz is going to trade a backhand up the middle with a lot of pace. Sinner has another forehand here. Neutral position, feet are set, and he trades it up the middle. And it's okay. It's got decent depth on it, but he didn't make Alcaraz move. He didn't hit it very hard. And Alcaraz is going to absolutely rip the cover off of the forehand inside out. Sinner can't even move for it. And again, what I'm looking at here is Sinner goes from a perfectly neutral position, hitting a forehand, to no chance on the next ball because he didn't do enough with his trade. This is not necessarily, again, I want to stress, Jannik isn't doing much wrong here. His shot, he's not hitting really weak, short trades. But when you play neutral into the Alcaraz forehand and Alcaraz is at this level, the level that he was at in this match, you got to do more. There's got to be either more pace or more depth or more width. And you got to take your chances when you have an opportunity to maybe break out of that kind of neutral mode and do some damage yourself and put Alcaraz under pressure. You got to take those opportunities. And I felt Sinner was a little bit reluctant at times to take those opportunities. He was trying to play from neutral, and he was getting hurt. All right, had Alcaraz lost, and the reason I want to kind of go into this is I want to be careful not just to make everything about what Alcaraz did well, what Sinner didn't, because at the end of the day, this was, again, a razor-tight match. Had Alcaraz have lost, I think it would have been in large part to the fact that at times his backhand was getting in the way of his magnificent forehand performance. I've rarely seen the gap between Alcaraz's forehand and backhand be so large as it was in this match. But it was. And I felt Alcaraz was, unfortunately for him, beating himself too often on the backhand side, which frustrates me. I think there's room for improvement here. And again, had Sinner have come out on top, this would have been, a major talking point for me. I'd love to see Alcaraz go or start to kind of get into more of a sword shield mentality, at least sometimes. And sword shield is, a Craig O'Shaughnessy term where the forehand is the sword because it's doing your damage. The backhand is the shield because, you just want to basically be impenetrable on it. You want it to be rock solid. You don't want to lose. You don't want to get hurt on your backhand. You don't want to make errors on it. You don't want to get attacked off of it. But it's not necessarily the shot that you are looking to damage your opponent with as often. So that's the sword shield dynamic. And part of it is a mentality, right? It's not Alcaraz's mentality. Alcaraz has more of a sword mentality. And I'm sorry, but the sword on the left side of his body was kind of messing up the efficiency of his overall game, because the sword on the right hand of his body was awesome in this match. You know what I mean? So for me, it's kind of like, let me make a basketball analogy. In basketball, you want your best player taking the majority of the shots because it's more efficient that way. And when Alcaraz takes a lot of risk on his backhand, it almost feels like when Steph Curry's teammate takes a 30-foot jump shot at the end of the shot clock. It's like, well, maybe we should have given it to Steph Curry to take that shot, because if you're going to miss, at least it was Steph. You knew you were kind of living and dying by your best. And that's the one part of this Alcaraz performance that I thought gave Sinner more of a chance and almost cost him, is that the backhand being as shaky as it was at times, making as many errors as it did, offset a lot of the good work on the forehand. Statistically, just to close this knot, Alcaraz 36 forehand winners to 26 unforced errors. So that's a +10 ratio on the forehand, which might sound somewhat modest. It's not. It's exceptional, because if you add in all of the forced errors that Alcaraz was able to produce with his forehand, think about how good it was. But on the backhand, he offset that with 12 backhand winners, 23 backhand unforced errors. That's a -11. So +10 on the forehand, -11 on the backhand. If he just got both of those numbers down, obviously, cut down on the unforced errors, cut down on the winners maybe, because it's a give and take, I think he'd be in a better place. Now, a counterpoint to the point that I'm making, 4-5, 30 all in the second set. Jannik Sinner is 2 points away from winning this match at 4-5, 30 all. And Alcaraz hits a backhand cross court, sharp angle, hit, I don't know the edge of the line, but it hit the outside of the line, and it was a winner. In a neutral situation, Alcaraz was able to produce some of that magic with the backhand side in a huge spot. So my biggest Alcaraz critique is that, and my biggest Sinner critique, I kind of already mentioned it. It's how often he let Alcaraz's forehand dictate play. Because for large portions of the match, I felt Sinner wasn't doing enough to keep Alcaraz at bay. He wanted to play from neutral, but he was getting beaten to the punch. There was also a gap in finishing skills that I want to cover. Jannik was very inefficient at the net. He ended up 7 for 20. And a couple of things. One, I thought there were some tame approach shots where kind of similar to how he was hitting his ground stroke trades often. Just maybe not enough on it. Maybe not doing quite enough. Not daring enough. And sometimes that's okay, but if you're playing Alcaraz especially, you're going to have to hit a difficult volley. He's such an excellent shot maker. He is incredible at dipping the ball down low off of both wings. Even when he has to slice it, he's very good at getting the ball low, which not many players can say. So if you don't hit a great approach shot, you're damn right. You better believe you're going to have to hit a difficult volley. And now you're contending with the fastest player in the world when you hit that difficult volley. So good luck finishing it. And Sinner did not hit difficult volleys well. He also kind of struggled to cash in when he had short balls on his backhand. So, and when I say cash in, I just mean, 2-point ending damage, maintain an advantage in the point. 4-all in the second set was a big game because Sinner got broken and ended up losing the second set 6-4. If you zoom in on that game, Jannik was actually attacking in all 4 points that he lost, at least at one point, because he missed 2 forehands in this game. He hit a tame forehand inside in and got countered. Alcaraz hitting a running forehand cross court. And then Jannik actually had an overhead that he hit 2 central, got neutralized. Then he had one of these mid-court backhands, the kind of ball that I'm really referring to, and he missed the mid-court backhand in the net that I think he was approaching on. Alcaraz, on the other hand, he had a much easier time finishing. I still think the biggest key to that was bigger forehands, but also more reliable drop shots, a better sense of covering the net. He moves better up there. How often is he kind of one step ahead in terms of reading which way Sinner is going on the pass and, covering the net in very sensible ways, taking away the high percentage replies, choosing unpredictable targets to volley into, right? Like you just never feel like where Alcaraz is going with his volleys. And Alcaraz, unlike Sinner, he makes a lot of tough volleys. There's a difference there. Let's, look at the third set tiebreak. Look at the tiebreak that decided this match. The only point we've looked at so far is the 4-3 mini break when Sinner kind of, traded a couple of forehands into the middle of the court and got hurt with Alcaraz's forehand. Sinner starts the tiebreak 3-0. He goes up 3-0. I actually think he found some really good proactive aggression in the tiebreak, which he did more and more second half of the third set. At 3-love, Sinner up, Alcaraz has to hit a half volley from the service line. He hit it nice and short. He made Sinner hit a slice backhand to pass. That one usually goes cross court. Alcaraz read it. He covered it. He knocked away the backhand volley into the open court winner. He had to hit a half volley from the service line, and he was down 3-0. He had to execute that, and he did it. At 3-1, this point was absurd because Sinner hit a crazy lob to neutralize the point. Alcaraz later on in the point hits a great forehand cross-court angle approach, but Sinner hits a good pass. Alcaraz has to hit another half volley. Sinner gets to this one a little bit easier, higher contact point, just slightly, but it was another well-executed half volley by Alcaraz short in the court. Alcaraz reads the down-the-line pass this time and hits a full stretch forehand volley to finish. If the movement and anticipation wasn't on point, Jannik Sinner would have had the pass. Again, he makes 2 difficult volleys, and he moves beautifully up there. That was 3-1. How about 3-all in the tiebreak? Sinner hit such a deep return that Alcaraz was not expecting. Alcaraz has to serve and volley from no man's land. He literally had to hit a volley from 5 feet behind the service line. And he hits it deep, and he comes forward. This sounds weird to say, but he basically approaches behind his volley. I mean, again, we don't say that very often, but that's what he did. Jannik has what was a fairly regulation backhand pass to look at. And he hit it very hard. It was from a low contact point, and it was from the middle of the court, so he didn't have a lot of angle to work with. But he hit it quite hard. But Alcaraz, again, it looked like he got a jump on it, and he stabs a backhand volley winner into the deuce corner. Like he looked like a double specialist with that crisp, firm, stick backhand volley off of what was a hard, a pacey backhand pass by Sinner. So again, these situations, these are not the kind of volleys you practice. These are awkward situations that Alcaraz is able to navigate out of because he has that sort of improvisational, those improvisational hand skills. And in these creative, almost broken situations, he excels. And that made a big difference. I do want to address some of Sinner's success in more detail. First of all, clutchness, and I'll get into more of that when I do the notebook dump. There is a consistency factor that, of course, he had a big edge there. He made far fewer unforced errors. He had a higher floor in his game. There were a couple of games where Alcaraz, on the forehand that was so excellent, and the backhand that he was still looking to be really aggressive on, there were games where it got a little sloppy for Alcaraz, less so with Sinner. So certainly that was an advantage there. And I think Sinner at times in the match, when I say that Jannik was too comfortable just being a passenger and looking to trade and almost kind of getting beaten to the punch oftentimes, that wasn't always. It was too often, in my opinion, and that's where I come in with the critique, but it was not always. And there were times where Jannik did look to take more control and the ball striking started to be more forceful. And he looked to mix it up. He used the drop shot, sometimes pretty well. He did try to come forward. There were some good moments coming to the net, including off of a set point that he saved in the first set, where he hit a pretty good backhand volley, kind of softened his hands, and got it to bounce twice in front of Alcaraz. One of 3 set points he saved. Sinner, when he won the first set, it was really about clutchness, though. Alcaraz served for the set at 5-3. He made a low percentage decision. There was a big second serve return from Jannik. Sinner did a good job in this game of attacking Alcaraz's forehand defense with pace. So getting a little bit more on his shots and getting Alcaraz to play that forehand on the run, which is where you can get some misses out of him sometimes. Nonetheless, Sinner had to look at 3 set points. I mentioned the volley that he hit on the first set point, but it was also set up by a really great first serve and a forehand approach shot. And then on the second set point, he hit an ace. Then on the third set point, Alcaraz missed his spot on a first serve on the ad side. He tried to go tee. It went right into the forehand strike zone of Sinner, and Jannik hit it flush. Forehand inside in return, won the point with it outright. And then on Sinner's first set point, at 7-6 in the first set tiebreak, Alcaraz made one of these backhand unforced errors that were kind of driving me crazy from his point of view during the match. I felt there were too much of those given how well the forehand was performing. So that was kind of the first set. Notebook dump here. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but I'm going to kind of give you a couple of more things that I noticed. First, more things that worked for Sinner. Jannik's serve at times were giving him a lot of really easy +1 forehands because he was hitting a lot of good spots. So getting Alcaraz stretched out, getting him to slice the return, and I just thought Sinner was getting more sitters off of that +1 compared to Alcaraz in general. Maybe Alcaraz made up for it, though, with just how much intention and how much easy damage he was creating off of even difficult +1 forehands. Sinner also had a lot of success trading his backhand cross-court with pace into Alcaraz's backhand. when Sinner realized, oh, if I really rev it up into Alcaraz's backhand, Carlos he's missing a lot off of that ball. That was a good pattern for Jannik. Sinner did not have much of a serving advantage in this match, though, statistically. I do want to point out both players hit about a 21% unreturned serves rate. Alcaraz was a hair higher. That's interesting. That's an area that Sinner definitely wants to have an advantage. So much has been made out of the improvement of Jannik Sinner's first serve, and rightly so. A lot of it has been made of Alcaraz's first serve, maybe not giving him as much help as he would want. Well, in this match, unreturned serve percentages, Alcaraz slightly higher. Note that. What about Sinner's first serve percentage? Well, his season average is 62%. Today it was 55%. At Roland Garros, it was 47%. At Indian Wells, it was 62%, which means that in the 3 Alcaraz-Sinner matchups this year, Sinner has failed to rise above his 52-week average in any of them. Maybe 0.1% over at Indian Wells, but essentially he was average at Indian Wells. He was below average, somewhat substantially, in the next 2. So, obviously against a great player like Alcaraz, against a great rival like Alcaraz, you're looking to do certain things even better than usual. He has not been able to do that on his first serve. Had Alcaraz lost this match, it would have followed a pattern that we've seen in this matchup of Sinner being more opportune with break chances. Alcaraz was only 3 of 15 in this match. I did mention how many chances there were for Alcaraz to put away the first set, which he failed to do. Alcaraz in this matchup, as a whole, is 32 for 115 in converting break points on return. 27%. His return points won percentage is 38%. So that is a massive, over a large sample size, that is a massive dip in efficiency for Alcaraz when he's trying to win a return point. There is a massive dip when it happens to be a break point. And this match certainly will not help that statistical trend. Alcaraz just happened to be able to win anyway. On a similar note, Alcaraz has really improved from last year on being able to turn the page after disappointments and maintaining focus after long, mentally taxing sets. We documented last year that Carlitos had a little bit of a second set issue. Sometimes he'd play like a long, epic first set, and then in the second set, he would almost be on Mars for the first 10 minutes and usually go down an early break. That was happening a ton. And this year, I'd like to point out that Alcaraz has lost the first set against Sinner all 3 times they've played this year. And he's been able to come back and turn those into wins. Last point, Sinner was getting killed on his second serve when he went into Alcaraz's backhand. Carlitos was so good with the crush and rush. He was, just really excellent at taking that backhand return nice and early. And it wasn't until Sinner had to really make an adjustment and start mixing up his second serves more that he was able to find some relief, against Alcaraz's aggressive second serve returning. And that concludes my analysis of Alcaraz Sinner in this Beijing final. I will say now that my next show will be a mailbag coming out for kind of in place of Monday Match Analysis next week, just because Shanghai will just be getting started. So there won't be a final to analyze. So instead of Monday Match Analysis at the beginning of next week, there will be a mailbag. So if there's any follow-ups on anything I just said, look out for the YouTube community tab. Join my Discord. The link to that is in the description. You can leave a mailbag question there 24/7. Also, before we get to the final in Tokyo, a reminder that Monday Match Analysis is powered by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. BetUS offers 24/7 customer service and the fastest payouts in the industry. And currently, you can go to betus.com and use the promo code YouTube150 for an 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000. Please gamble responsibly and don't harass the players. Let us go now to Arthur Fils, defeating Ugo Humbert in a Tokyo final. I didn't think it was possible to defeat Ugo Humbert in a final. He was 6-0. He'd only lost one set. I think the explanation for that is look, Humbert, he's a pretty conditions-dependent player. He has really improved his consistency, but I wouldn't say he's like a guy where you always know what kind of performance you're going to get out of him. But I do think he's been the guy, when he's on, he's on. When he's feeling the conditions, when he's several matches in, he's really tough to beat at that point because he's so good at keeping control of rallies and just maneuvering the ball around the court. And, you know, all that to say, credit to Arthur Fils for finally being someone who manages to beat Ugo Humbert in a final. But this run from Fils was all about resilience. He drew the defending champion, Taylor Fritz, in the first round. He won a 3-setter. He played 3 overtime sets against Ben Shelton, won it in a 3rd-set tiebreak. And now as I get more granular, I want to continue to kind of highlight the resilience factor. First set tiebreak against Rune. He gets a total robbery of the lines call when he was up set point, where the lines judge made a terrible decision and Fils had an easy put-away volley. They had to replay the point and Rune hit an ace. Fils regroups and ends up winning that tiebreak. Second set tiebreak against Rune. He's up 6-3. He loses all of those match points. It's a gut punch. Right? Suddenly now it's 6-all. And again, Fils is unfazed, wins the second set tiebreak, and comes away with the 7-6, 7-6 win over a pretty inspired Holger Rune. In the final, Fils loses the first set, one where he was generating most of the chances, and he is dead tired at the start of the second set. Why? I mentioned how many long matches he'd played over the course of the week. 3 sets against Fritz, 3 long sets against Shelton, 2 very long physical sets against Holger Rune. He was just, I don't think there was anything like, oh, by the way, the Rune match ended like midnight. So I don't think he got a really good recovery in after that. He looks dead tired in the second set, and he has to defend hard in some big spots to stay in the match. And you could see how hard it was. He had to physically suffer. He had to dig in, and he had to be willing to kind of fight through the pain and do the road work necessary. And he did it. He just did it. And then in the second set, he came back from love 40 to keep his serve. This was late in the second. It looked like Ugo Humbert was winning this match, period. Love 40 down. He comes back. He forces a tiebreak. He saves a match point in the tiebreak, which was just a glorious point. I'm going to break it down in an episode of The Point where I'll get footage from it and we'll look at it kind of in depth. And then in the third set, because Fils, after saving that match point with a brilliant backhand pass, he wins the tiebreak. In the third set, he breaks from 40 love down. Like, how many times did this young Frenchman, this 20-year-old, show heart, grit, determination at the very highest level? I can't say enough. I mean, you wait to see certain things from young players. Like, there are certain things that, okay, I get it. You have weapons. Okay, you're fast. Okay, you're a good athlete. Okay, you have good hands. There are certain things that you just don't discover about a young player until you discover it. And this was one of those moments. The grit and the heart and the resilience from Fils. I mean, he showed me something. He showed me something here. Humbert, on the other hand, I don't want to come down hard on him here, as much as it may seem I am. But just like a contrast, because sometimes tennis is about like how hard you are willing to work in certain moments. And I mentioned this love 40 comeback from Feast second set. And I just want to show you this love 40 point because I think it is significant. Because in contrast to Feast being an absolute animal out there, this was one moment from Humbert that I thought there probably just could have been a little bit more out. He could have dug a little bit deeper here. Look at this running forehand. All right, it's not a very desperate situation. He's there in plenty of time, but instead of kind of planting his right foot, maybe hitting an open stance forehand cross court and recovering back to the middle, he just hits this kind of fly-by prayer forehand down the line, and it goes into the bottom of the net. He was kind of going for the highlight reel here. Humbert is very talented. He can do it sometimes, but that's kind of the one. That shot right there was kind of the one that cost him. And he didn't really give himself the best chance because he wasn't really willing to fully commit to the grind. Meanwhile, Feast, earlier on in that point, he was actually on the defense, and he was willing to hang in the point. And then Feast, by the way, after that point, he went serve +1 winner, service winner, service winner, service winner. So when I say that was Humbert's chance, that's what I'm saying. You're playing a guy with big weapons. He might take the racket out of your hand. So, you never know if that love 40 point is going to be the one that you need to have. On a more tactical note, Feast, when he was dragged out onto his forehand, he was floating slice defense deep in the court brilliantly. And the slow slice defense from Feast was really effective. Humbert really likes some pace to work with. He almost needs some pace to work with. And he wasn't really coming in. So he was staying back. He's not the best pace generator. Feast is lightning quick. So Humbert was having a lot of trouble just finding finishes because of Feast's slice defense. This was a major tactical key. Another big one, and by the way, we saw this on the match point that Humbert saved. We also saw it on the break point in the third set. Squash defense by Feast, which was nasty, that actually went into a Humbert slice backhand error. The squash defense throughout the match, you would be shocked for Feast to see how often it came up big for him in a big spot, how often it won him points from losing positions. It kind of made Humbert look underpowered at times with how often Feast was recovering control of rallies that he previously didn't have control over. And it comes down to Feast's speed, his execution of the tactic of defending with the slice, and his willingness to suffer. Because it's much easier to try to neutralize the point by, hitting a counterattack, coming up with something special. Slice defense is not often special. It means you're going to probably have to run on the next ball and maybe the ball after that. It is not the easy way out. And this is kind of what I'm trying to hammer home, that it's a combination of Feast of heart and tactics. The other two things I want to talk about is Feast's backhand return. Very, very key. There were times where Humbert's first serve was winning him the match. First set, that was the biggest difference. Humbert's first serve was much more deadly than Feast's. But with Humbert hitting the slice serve wide into Feast's backhand, Feast had Ugo under the gun whenever Humbert didn't hit it perfectly. And oftentimes Humbert can just kind of hit this slow slider serve and it gives righties fits. It gives right-handers big fits. How do you neutralize it? Well, the first thing is you hit a big open stance backhand return. When I say big, how much pace do you get on the ball? Are you able to rush Humbert? How much depth can you get on the ball? And Feast just has a really good backhand. And he was hitting the ball with neutralizing quality very often. And also you need speed to recover back into the court. So I just saw over and over again, including on the match point, Humbert hit a slice serve that pulled Feast out wide, but between the quality of Feast's backhand return and the speed to recover the position, Fils was able to survive Humbert's serve +1 combination off of that slider out wide. And Humbert likes to do the same thing on the second serve, and you need a strong backhand to take advantage and to be offensive as a right-hander. And again, Fils, great backhand returning in this match whenever he had an opportunity. If Humbert hits a perfect serve, okay, too good. But when he had an opportunity, he was really good. Last thing I want to mention, Fis's serve. I mentioned his legs were tired. His serve picked up the slack in a really big way when, to kind of just save some of Fis's energy. And I'm pretty sure that Arthur brought his toss down quite a bit, that his toss is lower than what it used to be. And there are a lot of advantages to that. I think it's a great adjustment for Fils, and it's going to serve him well in the long term. Obviously, your toss location can be more consistent when you toss the ball lower, because any degree, right or left, forward or back, any degree that you've almost missed your perfect release point, it's going to be further and further away the higher your toss is. The second thing is that the ball is not dropping as rapidly when you hit the shot. And sometimes that nice kind of rapid drop can be nice on a kick serve. On the other serves, it's unhelpful. It makes the entire motion more difficult to time. The timing comes easier. It's a little bit it's a little bit easier to be fluid and flowy on the first serve. And then the third thing is you're not waiting as long in that loaded position, and that also helps the power. So I thought this was a really good serving performance for Fils, and I just wanted to point out the adjustment that he made in terms of his toss being lower. That is all I got. I will talk to you again for the mailbag. Thanks again to BetUS. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.